I put this content warning here as kind of a flippant, sarcastic joke, but to be honest, it does actually cover the topics in this video. If you are at all squeamish or sensitive to extreme body horror, dark, uncomfortable themes, things like that, I would highly recommend not watching this video, as we are going to talk about the Daemonculaba. I made a video a while back about disgusting models, and by far the most common reply to the question of what the most disgusting thing in Warhammer 40k is, was this Daemonculaba. Now, I'm not much of a lore guy, so I did what any self-respecting 40k YouTuber does when they want to make a video about the lore. I searched the wiki, and oh boy. Before we continue, I'm going to recommend something here. If you like reading and don't know what the Daemonculaba is, stop the video and go read the first 3 books of the Uriel Ventris series. I'll comment on why in more depth later, but I think the impact of the Daemonculaba is far greater if you don't know what it is. For everyone else, strap in, because this is gonna be a ride. So what is the Daemonculaba? Or more accurately, what is a Daemonculaba? Or more importantly, actually, how do you pronounce Daemonculaba? I pronounce it as Daemonculaba, but for this video I've been trying to pronounce it as Daemonculaba, because it's clearly a concatenation of demon, an evil being of the warp, and Culaba, a municipality in the Biliran province of the Philippines. But it could actually be Daemonculaba, because it's similar to the term incubator, so Daemonculaba incubator, which would make sense because that's kind of what it is. It's an incubator for new Iron Warriors. Kind of. Daemonculaba are massively mutated human females, which are implanted with an adolescent human male through what is essentially a reverse C-section, pumped full of gene seed, Astartes genetic material, and 11 different herbs and spices, and then reborn skinless a few days later and either yeeted for being a bit too weird, or given a new skin made of human flesh and become a new heretic Astartes warrior. And no, I'm not going to attempt to draw any of that. I'm no crack duck. Now, this is a very, very high level overview of it, and we'll get into the gritty details in this video, but the main thing that struck me when reading the wiki is that this seems to be a one and done thing that exists in a small section of a book and nowhere else. There isn't a model you can see on the tabletop for the Daemonculaba, thank Christ, nor is there any other reference to it in codexes or any game text. It's all contained within a single book, Dead Sky, Black Sun by Graham McNeil. After reading the wiki, I wanted to know the context, if any context would actually make what this is any more reasonable, so I sought out the book. But it turns out Dead Sky, Black Sun is the 3rd book of the first Uriel Ventris trilogy. So I read all 3. Was it necessary? I mean, it kind of was. If you just want to get a deep dive into Daemonculaba, then probably not, but I think the surrounding stories are good enough to go through to understand the journey taken to get there. The Uriel Ventris trilogy contains 3 books and 3 short stories about Uriel Ventris. I mean, that should be obvious, you shouldn't need me to tell you that. Uriel Ventris became the captain of the 4th company of the Ultramarines after the death of Captain Idaeus in a tragic bridge accident. Ventris is joined by his main man, Sergeant Pausanias, an absolute unit with a heavy flamer, and Sergeant Leurchus, who holds up the Ultramarine tradition of having a name beginning with an L and being every D&D player's first lawful good paladin character who decides that no one else is allowed to have fun because the book says no. Together, along with the 4th company, Uriel embarks on several missions, the 2 biggest ones bringing him face to face with the Catan Shard and Nightbringer, and a fairly hefty helping of Tyranids from High Fleet Leviathan. Throughout these encounters, Uriel's main character arc focuses on trying to stick to the rules but also take the lessons from his mentor that the Codex Astartes are more guidelines than actual rules. Uriel wants to do what he believes is right and will save the most people, even if that goes against the Codex Astartes that he reveres. Despite his actions saving the fates of 2 planets, Leurchus believes that it wasn't rules as written enough and dobs him into the heresy police. Uriel and Pausanias are tried for heresy, but instead of arguing their case, they are convinced to accept the charges and are given a death oath, exiled from the Ultramarines and sent to find the Daemonculaba and destroy it. One thing I did enjoy in these books is the way that the Ultramarines operate and how their adherence to the Codex Astartes are presented, especially in the decision by Uriel to accept his punishment. There is some leniency to the Codex, despite what a couple of L Ultramarines might think, but there's a limit, and Uriel does cross that quite considerably when he abandons his men to join the Death Watch, a decision that was ultimately correct in halting the Tyranids. Whether that decision is correct or not, the Ultramarines are worried that if a captain is seen to be allowed to just not follow the rules without punishment or consequence, it would be a slippery slope that would encourage others to start doing their own thing and eventually to, well, the Mortifactors, an Ultramarine successor chapter introduced in Warriors of Ultramar, which drinks blood and does weird ritual with bones of their dead. The Ultramarines are meant to represent and hold the teachings passed down by their Primarch. Deviating from that is basically telling their own Primarch, the author of the Codex Astartes itself, to bugger off. That's probably not a good look. It's okay, Uriel, you'll be welcome to Screaming Ravens. We think the Codex is a bit daft as well. And this leads us on to the book Dead Sky, Black Sun. Uriel and Pausanias get struck by the warp pretty quick after they leave and find themselves on Blaine the Pain train, which takes them on a direct route to Super Hell, and it's standing room only. The demonic entity on the train asks them to destroy the Heart of Blood, which they say they will, because what other choice do they have in that situation? It's also right near where they need to be anyway, so might as well. What could possibly go wrong? The train's last stop is Medrungard, the Iron Warrior's homeworld, which currently seems to be having a spot of bother, as 2 Iron Warrior warsmiths, Toramino and Barossus, are not super happy with the plucky up-and-comer called Honsu, who currently resides in the fortress of Kalangol, with some sort of useful artifact Honsu recently acquired. And my god, were all of those names difficult to pronounce. I had to re-record this about 12 times. Journeying through Medrungard, Uriel and Pausanias come across a rogue band of space marines and 2 guardsmen, led by Ardaric Varns, formerly of the Raven Guard, who uses lightning claws, so is by far the coolest character. Uriel convinces them to help him go and destroy both the Heart of Blood and the Demonculaba, and after much strife, they finally get to Kalangol, where they are captured and tortured. And it is here that Uriel first lays his eyes upon the Demonculaba. Uriel lost sight of the bulldozers as the savage morticians climbed a long grilled ramp that led up the first tier of cages that ran around the circumference of the chamber. A number of conduits suspended on cruel iron hooks followed the curve of the cavern walls, laden with groaning, spitting pipes, crackling electrical cables, and a clear tube of the viscous, bristly substance. As they reached the top of the ramp, Uriel saw that the cages were indeed filled with hideous victims that resembled those poor unfortunates who had died in the flesh camps in the mountains. But as horrific as that had been, this was a horror beyond anything he had seen before. Each vast, bloated creature in these cages was female, their bodies swollen beyond all resemblance to humanity. Shackled into their cages, they gurgled and drooled in voiceless madness and torment, their vocal cords having long since been cut. Engorged as they were by unnatural means, Uriel saw that their size was not simply due to monstrous infusions of growth hormones and dark magics. These gargantuan females were pregnant. No normal pregnancies, though, saw Uriel. Their swollen bellies rippled with numerous tumescent growths, giant squirming things easily the size of a space marine. With repulsed horror, Uriel realized that he looked on the Demonculaba, vile, terrible, demonic wombs from which were ripped newly created Chaos Space Marines. Each cage was filled with these horribly pregnant monsters, and Uriel wept at their terrible fate. Here was the ultimate goal of his death oath, the destruction of which would see him restored in the grace of his chapter. Below him, he saw a great rumbling machine with a blood-smeared conveyor laden with bullet-riddled bodies or corpses with limbs missing. Great rollers and crushers awaited the bodies of the fallen Iron Warriors, and each was ground to a thick paste within the machine before being carried along pulsing pipes to the cages of the Demonculaba. Together with the gene seed Honso had taken from Hydra called Dartus, Uriel saw that this must be how the traitors managed to reharvest their gene seed for rebirth. This blasphemy against such a sacred and precious symbol of the Space Marines was almost too much to bear, and he swore he would kill Honsu with his bare hands. At last he was turned upright once more, seeing a number of other black-robed morticians working on convulsing Demonculaba. These sorry specimens had their bellies cut open and spread wide, pale pink folds of fatty flesh, held open with clamps as the deformed mutants placed the bodies of adolescent children within the open wombs, where the genetic material fed the Demonculaba would pass to the implanted children within. So yeah, not exactly the nicest of things. Something that isn't really portrayed in the wiki articles I found, and frankly, kind of a massive mistake, is they always capitalize Demonculaba in the wiki, like it's a proper noun, but it isn't. Demonculaba is always written with a lowercase d as a regular noun. The Demonculaba isn't a name given to individuals like a title. They're a tool, an object, given the same respect as you would a microwave or a car or regret. Earlier I said that Demonculaba hits more if you don't know what it is, and it's because earlier in the book you're shown that humans are being harvested for their flesh, given those same growth hormones to stretch out their skin, then starved so that their loose skin could be taken, then used on the new births from the Demonculaba. Because I knew about the Demonculaba, I didn't get the punch of that first abominable horror being one-upped later, which is a small shame, and not one that made me enjoy the book less. And the Demonculaba is just one gruesome part of a book filled with horrors beyond human comprehension, and it is very imaginative and effective body horror, no doubt. But something that I think does make the Demonculaba not as effective as being true nightmare-inducing horror is that it is beyond human comprehension. I don't think that the Demonculaba really is there to be something that will keep you awake at night, similar to a lot of absurd, over-the-top Grimdark material that 40k presents. Maybe it's because I have aphantasia, I can't imagine things or picture them in my head, but I literally cannot imagine what it'd be like to be a Demonculaba. I'm not exactly worried or can easily relate to being sent to a demon world and turned to a giant human meatball to repopulate a race of super soldiers, nor do I think I'm meant to. I'm saying this not as a criticism, but as to why I don't think the Demonculaba is quote-unquote that bad. It's grim as fuck, for sure, but body horror like this to me is more of an exploration about how far you can go to ramp up dark and twisted themes, given the possibilities presented by the settings, rather than something there to keep you awake at night. It's taking that gore and ramping it up to 11, to the point where it's beyond your understanding, beyond your ability to empathize with it, what's going on to these people, because it's so far beyond your understanding, so far beyond your imagination, that it's just otherworldly. I think the things that make us actually feel fear and actually keep us awake at night are things that are closer to home. One of my biggest fears is claustrophobia. So seeing things about cave diving, underwater diving, small tunnels, all of that stuff, it's all absolutely bowel-emptyingly frightening for me. But that's not what Grimdark and not really what the Homunculaba is about, I don't think. But I would really be interested in hearing your thoughts on the Homunculaba, Grimdark horror, and what keeps you up at night, apart from the threat of your pile of shame. So let me know in the comments your thoughts, and let me know if you enjoy this kind of lore video. I can't promise to do them that often, because I don't read that much, but it was quite a fun video to make. That'll be it. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this, go and like, subscribe, all the good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching.